All right, let's dive in. If you've ever felt like the world needed a massive reset button, well, you're going to love what we're talking about today. We're jumping into one of the most explosive, game-changing periods in all of human history, the Renaissance. And trust me, this is way more than just old paintings. It's about a total revolution in art, science, and even how we see ourselves. Let's get to it.
So, let me kick things off with a quick question for you. What in the world connects the most famous portrait ever painted, the greatest playwright who ever lived, and the basic fact that we know the Earth goes around the sun? The answer? They were all born out of this incredible cultural and intellectual awakening that we call the Renaissance. And look, I know a lot of you probably have a test on this coming up, so here's our game plan. We're going to break down exactly what the Renaissance was, why it all started in Italy, how art got this radical makeover. Then we'll get into the huge ideas that literally changed the world, and we'll wrap it all up with a quick cheat sheet to make sure it all sticks. Okay, first things first. What are we actually talking about when we say the Renaissance? Well, if you boil it down to one idea, it's a rebirth of the world. The word itself actually comes from French and means rebirth. And honestly, that's the perfect way to think about it. For a few hundred years, from about the 14th to the 16th centuries, Europe started rediscovering all the amazing art, science, and philosophy from ancient Greece and Rome. You know, it was almost like they found a long-lost treasure map to a more advanced, brilliant way of thinking. So just to put this on a timeline for you, after the Roman Empire fell, Europe went into the medieval era, or the Middle Ages. But then, starting in the 1300s, the Renaissance kicks off. And it acts like this incredible bridge that carries the world out of the medieval period and lays down all the tracks for the modern age. And here's the key takeaway. Without this period, our world today would be completely unrecognizable. Which, brings up a really good question. Why did this explosion of genius happen right then and right there? Well, to answer that, we have to look at what's called the Italian spark.
Yeah, so the whole thing kicked off in Italy, and that was no accident. Places like Florence, which we're seeing here, basically became the perfect incubator, a petri dish for growing brand new ideas. But why? What was so special about Italy?
Well, it was basically a perfect storm of conditions. You had these Italian city-states like Florence and Venice getting super rich from trade, and all this new money created this powerful class of merchants and bankers. Think of the famous Medici family. These guys had so much cash, they pretty much bankrolled the entire Renaissance, sponsoring artists and thinkers. And that sponsorship is called patronage. That's a huge term to remember for your test. It's what fueled the whole machine.
Okay, now let's get to the fun stuff. The part of the Renaissance you can actually see. The art. Because this wasn't just a minor tweak, it was a complete revolution that shifted the whole focus of art from God to, well, us. From God to man.
And you can really see the difference when you put them side by side. Before the Renaissance, in the medieval period, art was pretty much all religious. The whole point was to make you think about God, and the style was often very flat and symbolic. But then, boom, the Renaissance happens. Suddenly, art is about worldly things, portraits of regular, rich people, not just saints. The goal was to show off the amazing skill of the artist and to make you appreciate realism and beauty. I mean, just look at Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. Sure, it's a religious story, but that's not what makes it revolutionary. Look at the people. It is buzzing with real human drama and emotion. Every single apostle is reacting in a different, totally believable way. Da Vinci wasn't just painting religious icons, he was capturing a raw human moment. And then, of course, you've got the Mona Lisa. This painting is maybe the ultimate symbol of that new Renaissance focus. It's not about a goddess or a saint. It's just a person, an individual. The entire point of this masterpiece is to try and capture her unique personality, her essence, right down to that famous, mysterious smile. It's all about celebrating the individual. And this wasn't just happening in painting. Sculptors, like the incredible Michelangelo, became obsessed with studying human anatomy so they could create statues that looked so real you'd swear they were about to breathe. Works like his Pieta and David aren't just blocks of marble. They are a full-on celebration of the human body, of our potential for perfection, strength, and beauty.
But this rebirth went so much deeper than just art. You could argue the most powerful changes of all were happening in the world of ideas. This was about completely unlocking the human mind.
So if you're going to remember one big idea, one ism for your test, please make it this one: humanism. Humanism was the intellectual engine of the whole Renaissance. It was a major shift in thinking. Instead of focusing only on God and what happens after you die, thinkers started focusing on human beings, on our potential, our achievements, our importance right here, right now on Earth. It was this idea that people could achieve amazing things. Now, for big ideas to spread, you need a way to share them. And think about this. Before the 1450s, that was a gigantic problem. Every single book in the world had to be copied by hand, by a scribe. Can you imagine how slow that was? And how expensive? Knowledge was basically locked up, available only to a tiny, tiny elite. And then, everything changed. Around 1440, a guy named Johannes Gutenberg invents the printing press. And this was, no joke, the internet of its day. Suddenly, you could print thousands of copies of a book. New ideas about art, science, everything. They could spread across Europe like wildfire. This was an absolute game changer. And one of the people whose ideas started to spread was this man, Nicholas Copernicus. He is the perfect example of that Renaissance spirit of questioning everything, even beliefs that had been accepted as fact for more than 1,000 years.
See, for centuries, everybody just accepted the idea of geocentrism. Geo means Earth, so Earth-centered. The belief that the sun, the stars, everything revolved around us. I mean, it seems obvious when you look up, right? But Copernicus did the math, he made the observations, and he proposed a totally radical new theory, heliocentrism. He said, actually, I think the Earth is just another planet and we all revolve around the sun. This didn't just change astronomy, it completely changed humanity's place in the universe.
Okay, I know that was a ton of information, so like I promised, let's wrap it all up and boil it down with a quick cheat sheet. This is everything you need to know for that test.
First up, your key terms. Ready? Renaissance just means rebirth. Humanism, that's the big idea, the focus on human potential. Patronage, that's the money from rich families that funded all the art. And the printing press, the technology that let ideas spread like crazy. Got it?
And your key people, the all-stars. You gotta know Leonardo da Vinci, the ultimate Renaissance man who did everything. Michelangelo, the master sculptor. Copernicus, the guy who rearranged the solar system. And Gutenberg, who basically gave knowledge wings with his printing press. Remember those four? And you're golden.
At the end of the day, as our source material puts it, the Renaissance was a truly dramatic transformation. It wasn't a small step. It was a giant leap that pulled Europe out of the Middle Ages and set the stage for the modern world we live in today.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. The absolute core of the Renaissance was this deep, powerful belief in what human beings are capable of, what we can create, discover, and achieve. So the big question for us is, in our own time of incredible technology and change, are we still living up to that potential? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.